Hello, welcome to my channel. My name is Katie and I am a mixed media illustrator, and this is Studio Goals, where I try and get something done in the studio today. You're on a bit of a wonk, so I'm going to straighten you up. Better. So today is an actual studio day where I'm trying to get some of the products that I designed a couple of weeks back mocked up. I've downloaded a program called Affinity Designer, and so I'm not on Photoshop anymore because it's just too expensive. I'm just refusing to do it. Affinity is a one-time payment, so I've downloaded it. I've been using the photo for a while and it's pretty good. Everything is there, it's just in different places than where I'd expect it to be. And so I assume Designer is very similar to Illustrator, but everything is going to be not where I expect it to be. However, I'm going to work on some of the mock-ups today. I'm going to try and get some repeated patterns, some chosen patterns, some very specific images with some of the illustrations that I did a couple of weeks back. And I'm not sure whether I'm actually going to make them into products or whether they can just be like part of my portfolio to show that I could do repeated pattern and product design or pattern design, things like that. But I really want to get them done and at least attempted, and we'll see what they look like at the end. So this is probably going to be a no artwork day, but a big old at the computer doing lots of stuff day. So if you fancy joining me for that, come along. So this video is going to be 90%, well, the rest of this video is more or less is going to be me voiceover, and I basically took my artworks and I sat down all day and just played with it online. So you've just got my video screen recording for as much as I sort of did. I did do a bit of work not recording. I don't have unlimited amount of space on my computer, and so I just worked more or less throughout the day, and I stopped for lunch and stuff. So you'll see a little bit of this broken up amount of work that I did. Anyway, I'm going to try and talk you through what I did. So if you want to make products yourself, maybe you'll have a little bit of a guide here, because I really didn't know what I was doing. I knew what I wanted to do, and I planned out the kind of designs that I wanted to design, but I had no idea how to actually do that on here. So like I said at the beginning, I'd recently just downloaded Designer, and it's Affinity Designer and Affinity Photo is what I'm using here. So I'm not using any Adobe products, and I think they're about £80 for the three of them. There's also like a photo editor as well, and that is a one-time payment, so I really like it at the moment and I would definitely recommend it. So what I'm doing here is, if you joined me for, I think it's week 2 of my YouTube series, I was creating some designs to be created into products, and this is the first design that I created. This is called a ginkgo leaf. I've never seen one in real life, but I've seen lots of drawings of them and I really like them. And I created these traditionally with watercolour and neocolours, and you can watch that process in my other video. However, I did discover pretty quickly that I was doing them on A3 paper, and A3 paper is too big to fit in my scanner, so I had to wait until I went to a printer's for them to scan it for me, and they did, and it was scanned at 600 dpi, and they scanned it really nicely. So I'm probably going to do that in the future anyway. And so basically what I've done is I've thrown it into photo, I've removed the background, and what I'm doing now is I'm actually taking each individual leaf off that one scan and making each one an individual PNG. This is going to make it 1,000 times easier for me to actually create designs and move them around on a page, because each one is individual. I can scale it how I want. I don't have to worry about cutting out the background every time and getting it perfect. I just did it once, and then I can use it however many times over as I want to. So even though this is going to take a little bit of time and quite a bit of like faffing and finessing, it's definitely worth doing. And in fact, I didn't do it perfectly here, and on a couple of my PNGs there's like a couple of little dots, which isn't a big deal for most of my stuff, but later on I want to add like borders to the leaves, and every single little dot was picked up by that automatic border, and I had to then find them and delete them, and so that was a bit of a pain, which I'm sure you'll see in a little bit. However, you can see here I'm just creating the leaves and I'm saving them individually, and this has made it so much easier for me to create the designs. And now I think I could probably do this on like iPad or iPad Pro or something like that, and you could probably do this in any program, but I wanted to make sure that my pages were big, so A3 is what I was using for any of my pattern stuff, just so that you don't really print bigger than you create. And so I wanted to create big so that if I was printing on things like products and notebooks and sketchbooks and maybe calendars and I don't know, mugs, whatever I print them on, they're definitely big enough and they're not going to be losing detail. But you can see that as I drag this into A3, this is the size of each leaf naturally, and so they're already quite big, and so I'm going to have to scale them down anyway. So the first two things that I create, and I think they're probably the most important and the most versatile parts that I do, is I create a pattern on A3 paper that is very specific, as in I've called it a simple pattern because it doesn't repeat and it doesn't tile and it doesn't sort of work together in any capacity other than on this single sheet. So what I'm doing here is I'm just grabbing them around, I'm moving them as I like them, and as you can see, because they're PNGs, they're so easy to work with, and it was like a natural process rather than me trying to fight with each piece as I was doing it. And this is in Designer, and I've never used Designer before, so I'm going to struggle quite a few times in trying to find the settings that I want and stuff like that, but eventually you'll probably see me Googling it online. Eventually I get it and I work it out, and it's quite simple actually, and it is almost exactly like Photoshop, but things just aren't necessarily what you think they're going to be. So as you can see here, I have this initial design and it's really nice, it's really simple. I think it can be really versatile in that I can use it as notebooks, or I could use it as like any sort of single pattern. I could use it as a background for other things, and you'll see me later on using sort of a similar background like this for other products, and it just makes it just a little bit easier. So I'm recently enrolled in a business course online, and you probably heard of it, you might have heard of it. It's called the Good Ship Illustration course, and it's their business course, and they're talking a lot about getting into actual real life illustration industry, and believe it or not, that's something I'd quite like to do. And so initially my plans for these designs were to create products myself and send them off to printers and product creators like keyring people and stuff, and have them create products for me. And I might still do that on maybe a small scale, but just the idea of having to navigate inventory and market myself and market the products and push to get an audience just kind of sucks. And I think I could do it, and I might do it, but just not right now. So after I created that pattern, I did also create a repeated pattern, and I don't know if I recorded it. I hope I did. I also created a sticker sheet. Can you hear the bird outside? I also created a sticker sheet, a single sticker sheet, and single posters and postcard designs, which I then could turn into notebook covers or just single posters. I also made sure I had a single leaf that was my hero leaf, that was my favourite one, that I could then turn into a sticker or a pin. And you'll see with when I start adding the white outlines, lots of little dots appear, and they're the dots that I missed when I initially made them into little PNGs, and so I had to go around and manually delete every one of those dots, and it was a bit of a pain because you have to do it for every leaf, and of course I haven't saved the leaves as new PNGs, so every time I do this I'm going to have to remove those dots. I guess to a certain extent it's really helpful that the automatic outliner picks up on them, because they're quite obvious because of the giant outline, and it makes it really easy to delete them. But I did have to work out how the heck I do that, because it's not obvious where the eraser is in Designer, but there is an eraser, and up in the top left you can see like 3 little tabs, and the first tab is the Designer tab and the second tab is like the drawing tab, and so it's got like the eraser and the pencil and the fill tool and all the things that you'd expect on like Photoshop, but they're in the second tab on Designer. And so, like I was saying earlier, like everything is there in Designer, but it's not necessarily exactly what you'd expect it to be, and the processes to get to them aren't necessarily as easy as it would be in Photoshop. However, if this is the first program that you're playing with and designing in, you're going to pick it up really easy, because you're not going to be pre-informed into how these programs work, and so this one won't feel quite as alien to you. One of the big things I'm doing right now is working on my portfolio and trying to get it really tight and to be really happy with it. These artworks are some of the artworks that I'm really happy with. I really like how they turned out. I think I like probably 9 out of the 10, 11, 12 leaves that I drew. You'll see that there's a couple there that I keep just not using, just because I just don't like them that much. So I wanted to create designs for almost every eventuality. That way I can use them in any products that I wanted to use them in, or they can be distributed in any way that is appropriate for them to be distributed in. And so not only did I do what I called a simple pattern, I also did a repeated pattern. And there's no easy way to do a repeated pattern on Designer. If that's something you're interested in, I can do a tutorial how I did my repeated patterns. However, if you've done repeated patterns on like Procreate, where you snap to the left and snap to the right, that is pretty much exactly what I did in Designer. So they have a really good snapping tool, and I created my design, and I put all my leaves in the middle, and basically the only rule is don't have any of your leaves cutting outside of the box, so every single PNG fits within the canvas size. And then what you do is you repeat that canvas, you repeat your layer, so you have 2 layers that look exactly the same, and you pull one to the left until the halfway mark snaps to the edge of the canvas, and you pull one to the right until the halfway mark snaps to the edge of the canvas, and then you group them, and then you duplicate that layer again, and then you pull one to the top until it snaps and one to the bottom until it snaps. And then what you do is you fill in that gap in the middle with more leaves, remembering not to hit the edge of your canvas, and then what you've got there is a repeated pattern. And it's literally as simple as that. And I tested it on another page and it works genuinely really perfectly. It's really, really good, and it's really easy to do, so you don't need any fancy programs to do repeated patterns. I learnt this when I was making repeated patterns in Procreate, because that doesn't have a way of doing it. And you can even do it with pieces of paper. You can do your artworks right in the middle, you cut it in half, and you stick what is currently the 2 outside edges together, and you cut that in half and stick the new outside edges together. So what you've got is all your artwork around the edge of the pieces of paper and a blank space in the middle, and then you fill that blank space. It's super easy, it's super fun, and you create really satisfying repeated patterns really quickly, especially if you've already got artworks that you're creating the patterns with. It's so good. So for most of the things that I just created almost like a poster with the design on it. So it was either the single design with the leaves heroed in the middle, or it was the repeated patterns and the pattern design. But I also created a notepad, almost like a sticky note or something like that, which is something that I really wanted to create products of. And I think it would be really easy to create products of, because there's plenty of places out there that would create these products for me. However, it's definitely something that you could do on your own. And I struggle a little bit to work with the drawing software here in Affinity, because I'm working on my Mac and I don't have a Wacom or anything like that for my Mac, because I use most of my digital stuff on my iPad. And so I was really struggling to get the lines straight
and to get the shapes that I wanted. And I got there eventually, but it's just one of those things that's just going to take a little bit longer if you're not using the software that you're used to using. However, this was something I was sure I wanted to do from the very beginning, along with sticker sheets, single stickers, and pins, because I'm a real big fan of pins. And so I definitely knew I wanted, in my first round of creating product designs with these illustrations, I definitely wanted to try and make little sticky notes. And so that's what I've created. I'm really pleased with how all of these have turned out. I think it's definitely I was a bit skeptical at first about turning physical artworks into digital products and digital designs. I thought it was maybe something that, because of course traditional artwork doesn't really have those really nice crisp edges that you get on digital artwork, and I thought, well, maybe it would just look kind of naff and it wouldn't be necessarily the nicest quality and it would all look kind of blurry. However, putting them together on here and seeing them together and having like the crisp edges around the texture in the initial artworks has hopefully filled me with some confidence that actually you can turn traditional artwork into digital products or real life pattern stuff, and you don't need to create it digitally, and you don't need to be perfecting like a digital practice to create physical media. The more I see these things come together, the more I want to have them properly made in real life and to have copies of them myself and to maybe sell them. I'm sort of holding myself back on that a little bit because I want it to be done really well, and I really want each product to feel finished and printed and sold and really nicely. And so if this is something that I could do professionally rather than myself, I think that's something I prefer to do, so that I could put a lot of the work into creating the artworks and even creating the designs, although I'm not a designer, and if I was to work with a publishing company or a licensing company, that I imagine they would do that for me. I'm not too sure. However, it's definitely something you could do yourself if you're not really interested in having your stuff licensed and faffing around with all of that, because again, that's a faff too. You could definitely design something like this, spend a day or so creating the designs and then sending them out to print companies or product design companies. Think places like Vistaprint or Zap Creatives if you're in the UK. I've done a lot of work in finding the good companies that, I mean, at least I would trust, or I think I trust, to create things and print things for me. So again, I could do it. I've done a lot of work into prepping for that. I'm not sure if I'm going to. I think it might go onto my website for now. I might hold on to the designs for a little bit and see how I feel. But what I did do is I did print them off myself. So one good thing about actually doing some of this product stuff, and I have cards that I sell anyway, and I sell a lot of cards online, is that I've got a really good printer and it prints really nice stuff. And I've got really good paper, so what I did is I grabbed these, I threw them into a photo to create basic notebook covers, and I printed them off just to see what they'd look like, because I kind of was interested to know. And I think what you can just not get on a digital screen, but you can get in real life, is how good things look when you get them printed off. And it's almost like watching like your animation come to life, or to have a vision for making like a practical product, or to build some shelves or something, and then you make them and you step back and you look at it and you go, oh my gosh, yes, that is exactly what I wanted, or that looks better than what I thought it was going to look. And that's sort of the feeling that I got here with these, is that once you printed them off and then you created the products, they looked so good. And I really want to actually create physical products with them, and I want to sell them, and I'd love to see them on shelves. Oh my gosh, can you imagine seeing them on shelves? That would be fun. So maybe these will be in Tesco's next time you see them. Wouldn't that be amazing? Anyway, I'm just dreaming. So these things get printed off. They are very good. And then what I do is I create little notebooks out of them, and I do super simple stapled notebooks. They don't need to be fancy of any kind. They don't need to be perfect, because that's not really the point. It was just mainly, this is basically a mock-up of what it might look like should I have actual products one day. So it's really simple. You fold the piece of paper in half, you fold your paper in half, and what I've done there is I've grabbed a section of a really old diary, a really old like 2024 diary or something like that, that was never used, and I just shoved it in the middle and I just stapled it closed. And I did the same with watercolour paper and just regular paper to make little notebooks. And you'll see at the end, I'm so pleased with them. I don't know why I never thought about this before, but if you're a bit of a crafter, this is something that you can 100% like do all in-house. I created my designs in-house. If you create your initial artworks on a smaller piece of paper and don't do it on a giant A3 piece of paper like I did, you can then scan them at home on a regular A4 page. You just have to do more pages of artworks, and then you can edit them on your computer, get them ready, get them printed, and staple mini books together. Like, how easy peasy is that? And they're really good quality as well. And it's just a staple, and like, they don't have to be sold for, £15 each. That's super expensive, because you made them for like 50p, maybe £1, if you want to push it. So you could sell them for like a £5, a bit more. Anyway, so it's just super simple and totally worth it. Even if you're not planning on actually selling the products and mass making them, just making one or two just for yourself, I would say it's definitely worth it. For me, the programs took a bit of learning, and all this practical stuff was really easy. For you, the practical stuff might take a bit of learning, and the digital stuff might come super easy. And I know all I want to do is sit down and make artwork forever and ever and ever and ever, and have an agent that does everything else for me. They can market me, they can sell my artwork, they can sort out my finances. Wouldn't that be amazing? But in this world of freelancing, you've got to be a bit of everyone. And so I guess that's what I was doing today. I was just being a little bit of everyone. But I'm just going to pass you over to real life Katie, so she can tell you how much she loves the products.
So, I would say it's been a pretty good day. And the feeling you get when like something you've made comes to life. And I know these are just quick and dirty mock-ups, but like, they're real things, and like, they could be real things. So everything I was doing today is just sort of, I don't know if I'm going to get products made, or if I'm just going to create them for my portfolio and see. And just see where they take me. But I really like, and it's really encouraging that what I was making a couple of weeks back, where I was creating the designs, can actually be made into products like this. So I created a sticker sheet, I've created a single sticker, I've created, which could also be turned into a pin if I wanted it to be. I've got a repeating pattern, which I think is this one here, which is so big that I could use part of it, which is what this is. And then I've got a pattern where I've chosen very specifically where they go, which is this one here. And then I've got like two focused ones. So there's this one and this one. Yeah, and that was really fun to make. I'd like to create more mock-ups just to see what they could potentially look like as actual products. I don't know if I'm going to go down the route of inventory, but these are super cute and super cool. And I mean, doing them at home actually isn't the end of the world. I mean, this is just plain paper, but I'm sure I could get lined paper and create them at home. My prints were slightly off, but this has watercolour paper in it, so this is technically a sketchbook. How cool is that? Look at this. And yeah, I'm really happy with how these have turned out for a morning / afternoon of work. For a day's work, they're not half bad. Like, look at the set, or you could like mix and match. They are not half bad. I'm actually really happy with them. And remember, that came from the one Illustrator sheet, which I then got professionally scanned because it was too big for my scanner. But you could definitely do them on smaller sheets and then scan them yourself. Like, that is totally something you could do. And then it's really simple to put them together. I just folded the paper, stapled them at the edge. And these are functional sketchbooks or notebooks or diaries or journals or whatever you wanted. I'm so excited about these. I hope you've had a great day. I hope you had fun watching me trying to create things and learning a brand new program. It's a good program, but there's lots in it, and I just don't know it very well. I'm so used to Photoshop, and I've removed my Photoshop subscription, and so I'm working with Affinity now, and it's taking some learning, but it's good stuff, and it's got everything in it that I need. I just don't know where it is, and it all works slightly different to how Photoshop works, so it's just a big learning curve. I'm really happy with what I did today. I'm really excited to see other products that I might make with it, and I'll see you next week. Bye guys.